Welcome to the deep dive. Ready to cut through the noise? We're diving deep into some really interesting information today.
Yeah, we're looking at the global deliquescent dryer market.
Exactly. And we've got, well, the source material is excerpts from a market research report.
Yeah.
It's packed with data, forecasts.
Lots of numbers, regions, countries, growth rates, it's all in there.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Our mission really is to guide you through this data. We want to pull out the key numbers, the important insights.
See what's really driving growth in this market, right? And the report gives us a pretty detailed picture, especially when you look at different parts of the world.
It does. It's quite illuminating. So think of this as us doing the sifting for you, highlighting what really matters from these figures.
Yep, getting straight to the point on this market's future based on the data.
So join us. Let's explore these numbers together. We'll see what they tell us about this specific corner of the global economy. Maybe find some surprises.
Sounds good. Let's dive in.
All right, so where do we start? The big picture.
Yeah, let's start globally. The report gives us a baseline for deliquescent dryers, which, are basically for removing moisture from compressed air in factories and stuff. Really important for equipment.
Right, protects machinery, product quality.
Exactly. So the total sales revenue for that market back in 2021 was apparently $346.3 million.
Okay, $346.3 million in 2021. That's our starting block. How's it looking going forward?
Well, the projection shows a steady climb. By 2025, they expect it to hit $417.7 million.
Okay.
And then looking further out, the forecast for 2033, $607.8 million.
Wow. Okay, so going from mid-300s to over 600 million in about, 12 years?
Yeah, it's a pretty significant increase.
What kind of growth rate does that translate to? Is it accelerating or?
The report calculates a global compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, at 4.8%.
4.8%. So
Yeah.
fairly steady, not explosive, but solid year-over-year growth on average.
Exactly. Predictable expansion.
Yeah.
And the report points to a couple of main drivers for this.
Which are?
Primarily, it's growing demand across different industrial applications, plus improving infrastructure around the world. Pretty high-level drivers. But...
Sure, but it makes sense. More industry, better infrastructure, more need for this kind of equipment. It's fundamental.
Right. So it's tied to that broader economic development, especially, you'd imagine, in expanding economies.
Okay. Now, the report breaks this down regionally, right? Where are the main growth engines?
Yes. Asia-Pacific really jumps out from the data. It's already got the biggest slice of the pie, and it's also showing the fastest regional growth.
Okay, Asia-Pacific. Largest share and fastest growth. What does that look like in numbers?
Well, the CAGR for the region is pegged at 5.4%.
5.4% higher than the global average then.
Mm-hmm. And revenue-wise, it started at $119.1 million in 2021. The projection for 2025 is $150.4 million. And by 2033, they expect $229.7 million.
So almost doubling the market size in that 12-year span. That's impressive.
It really is.
Which countries are pushing that number up?
China is a huge factor, of course. It's projected to go from $48.4 million in 2021 up to $95.6 million by 2033. That's a 5.7% CAGR.
Right.
But interestingly, the report specifically calls out India. It says India has the highest CAGR among the key economies there.
Oh, what's India's rate?
A striking 6.4%.
6.4%. Okay, that really does stand out.
Yeah. So for India, the market size is projected to jump from $19.3 million in 2021 to $41.4 million by 2033.
Clearly a major growth hotbed.
Definitely one to watch. Any other significant players in Asia-Pacific?
Yeah, Japan shows solid, consistent growth. It's expected to reach $16.9 million by 2033. That's a 4.9% CAGR.
Mm-hmm.
South Korea and Australia are also important, projected around $15.5 million and $14.7 million, respectively, by 2033.
Okay.
And there's also Southeast Asia, treated as a subregion. That area is expanding quickly, too, with a 5.7%
Right.
CAGR, going from about $4.6 million to $9.4 million over the forecast period.
So Asia-Pacific is clearly the powerhouse here, both now and in the projections. Let's shift focus. How does North America compare? North America is also, a really significant contributor. The report puts its 2021 revenue at $98.3 million.
Okay.
That's projected to rise to $116.6 million by 2025, and then $167.7 million by 2033. So substantial growth there, too, even if the overall regional TGR is a bit lower than Asia-Pacific's.
And breaking that down within North America, the U.S. must be the largest part.
Oh, yeah, by far. The U.S. accounted for $68.5 million back in 2021. It's projected to grow to $112.6 million by 2033. The PGR there is 4.4%.
4.4%, okay.
But here's something interesting. Canada actually shows a higher growth rate.
Really? Higher than the U.S.?
Yep. Canada's forecast CGR is 5.6%, quite a bit faster.
Huh, 5.6%. What does that mean in dollar terms?
It means Canada's market is expected to go from $14 million in 2021 up to $26.4 million by 2033, so doubling almost.
Wow. Okay, so Canada's growing faster proportionally. What about Mexico?
Mexico shows steady development, too, a 4.7% CAGR, starting at $15.8 million in 2021 and projected to reach $28.7 million in 2033.
So North America. U.S. is the biggest volume, but Canada is showing faster relative growth. Interesting dynamic.
It is.
Okay, Europe was the third primary engine mentioned. What's the picture there?
Europe holds a solid third place globally. Market size in 2021 was $65.4 million. That's expected to climb to $77.8 million in 2025, and the projection for 2033 is $111.3 million.
Okay, over 111 million. And within Europe, are there particular standouts for growth?
Yes, according to this data, the UK actually leads the listed European countries in growth rate. It has a 5.5% CAGR.
5.5% for the UK, similar to Canada's rate then.
Pretty close, yeah. The UK market moves from $5.1 million up to $9.7 million by 2033. Germany is bigger in size and follows closely in growth, projected to hit $19.7 million by 2033 with a 4.9% CAGR.
Okay, Germany's strong as well. How about France and Italy?
France is looking at a 4% CAGR, growing from $8.3 million to $13.3 million. Italy is similar, 4.1% CAGR, expanding from $6.2 million to $9.9 million by 2033.
Right.
Russia is also significant, growing from $11.3 million to $17.6 million, though the CAGR is a bit lower at 3.9%. Spain moves from $5.4 million to $8.8 million. And even smaller markets like Luxembourg show growth, 1.6 million to $2.7 million.
Some fairly widespread growth across Europe.
Yes. And one more thing, the report lumps together the rest of Europe. That collective group actually shows a healthy CAGR of 5.6%.
5.6%, so as high as Canada and even slightly higher than the UK figure you mentioned.
Exactly. That rest of Europe category goes from 8.
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.
UK figure you mentioned.
Exactly. That rest of Europe category goes from $8.9 million in 2021 to a projected $17.2 million by 2033. So quite dynamic growth happening there collectively.
Interesting. So Europe's picture is solid overall with these pockets of slightly faster growth like the UK and this broader rest of Europe group.
Mm-hmm.
What are the other regions? Latin America was mentioned?
Yeah, Latin America contributes, though it's smaller scale than the big three. Brazil stands out there. It's projected for pretty solid growth, from $10.4 million in 2021 up to $18.1 million in 2033. That's a 5.1% CAGR.
Okay, 5.1% for Brazil is quite strong.
It is. Other markets like Argentina are projected to reach $7.5 million by 2033. Colombia around $4 million. Peru and Chile show more moderate growth, but still positive increases.
Got it. And the final region, Middle East and Africa, how does that look?
Well, according to this report, this region shows the slowest growth overall. The CAGR numbers are noticeably lower.
How low are we talking?
Egypt is projected at a 3.2% CAGR, growing from $2.1 million to $3 million by 2033. Turkey is similar, 3.1% CGR, rising from $2.4 million to $3.4 million.
Okay.
And the collective rest of the Middle East category, that posts the lowest DGR in the whole report, just 2.1%.
Only 2.1%. Wow.
Yeah, moving from $8.3 million in 2021 to only about $11 million by 2033. So very slow expansion predicted there compared to other regions.
Okay, that really paints a contrasting picture, doesn't it? High flyers like India and parts of Asia-Pac, steady growth in North America and Europe, and then much slower momentum in the Middle East and Africa.
Absolutely. The variation is quite clear when you look at all the numbers together.
So, if we synthesize this, what's the main takeaway from the report's data?
I mean, the core message is steady global expansion for this market. That overall 4.8% global CAGR sums it up pretty well. It's growing.
But it's definitely not uniform growth. Asia-Pacific, North America, and Europe are clearly the main engines. They dominate the current size and the projected increases.
Precisely. And within those regions, you see these specific hotspots like China, India, Canada, the UK, that rest of Europe bucket showing even faster acceleration.
Right. So the data suggests quite a few opportunities for manufacturers, investors, anyone involved in this space, but perhaps concentrated in specific areas.
Definitely. You can see where the momentum is strongest over the next decade, according to these projections.
So key takeaway, fundamental demand, steady global growth overall, but really powered by specific regions and countries, while others lag quite a bit behind.
Exactly. Which, brings up an interesting point to think about. Well, we've seen these big differences in growth rates, right? India at 6.4%, Canada 5.6%, down to parts of the Middle East at 2.1%. The report just gives those general drivers industrial applications, infrastructure.
Very broad.
So it makes you wonder, what specific factors within those countries or regions might be causing such big variations? What's really accelerating things in India or Canada compared to, say, Egypt or parts of the Middle East?
Yeah, that's a great question. Is it specific types of industries booming locally? Maybe massive infrastructure projects kicking off in one place but not another, or perhaps government regulations or initiatives playing a role.
Could be any combination of those, couldn't it? It suggests there's a layer deeper than just general industrial growth. Thinking about why those rates differ so much, that's where you get beyond the raw numbers.
Absolutely. It forces you to consider the unique economic pulse and development stage of each area, something to definitely mull over.
For sure.
Well, this has been fascinating, really digging into these numbers. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the Deliquescent dryer market data.
Thank you. It was interesting to break it all down. Okay, let's unpack this. Forget self-driving cars or AI dominance for just a moment.
Right.
We're diving into a surprisingly vital, maybe even overlooked corner of the industrial world.
Yeah, something you don't think about every day.
Exactly. We're talking about something called deliquescent dryers.
Ah, yes. Think of them as the quiet heroes of compressed air systems.
Quiet heroes, I like that.
They're passive devices, no moving parts, often working away behind the scenes, keeping critical stuff running smoothly across, well, countless industries.
Right, and today, based on some really interesting analysis we have from cognitive market research, our mission is basically to get you informed quickly about this niche but pretty important area. We're going to look at what makes businesses choose them, the significant hurdles they face, and some really clever innovations shaping this market, looking towards 2025 and beyond.
It's a deep dive, all right, into a technology that seems simple, maybe on the surface, but it actually reveals a lot about the practical challenges and the demands of modern industry.
So let's get started then. First off, just to kind of set the stage, what exactly is a deliquescent dryer at its core, and why would you even need one?
Okay, so at its heart, it uses a special chemical media, often comes in like tablet or pellet form,
Right.
and as moist compressed air passes through it, this media absorbs the water vapor. The key is in the name, deliquescent. It means it actually dissolves as it absorbs moisture,
Okay.
turning into a liquid solution that's then just drained away.
Right, so it's using chemistry
Yeah.
and gravity, really, not electricity or complex machines.
Precisely. And the why you need one, that's simple but honestly critical. Compressed air, just from how it's made and cooled, it contains water vapor.
Always.
Always. And that moisture, it's corrosive. It degrades your pipelines. It damages pneumatic tools.
You mean the air-powered tools?
Yeah, exactly. The ones you find everywhere, from factories to construction sites. And it shortens the lifespan of pretty much any machinery running on that air.
Got it. So getting that moisture out is just essential maintenance. Keeps systems healthy, avoids costly breakdowns. Makes perfect sense. But, okay, there are other types of dryers out there. So what specifically is driving businesses to pick deliquescent dryers right now? The report points to a few key things.
Well, the first big driver the source mentions is their energy efficiency. And that's particularly valuable in remote operations.
Remote. Why remote specifically?
Because they don't need electricity. None at all. So they're ideal for places where power is scarce or maybe unreliable or just expensive. Think oil and gas fields, remote mining operations.
Temporary construction sites too, maybe.
Absolutely. Temporary sites, isolated industrial setups, anywhere like that.
So their simplicity isn't a weakness there. It's actually a competitive edge. They just work off-grid.
Exactly right. For those decentralized environments where you absolutely need reliability, but without complex infrastructure or constant monitoring, they offer a really strong value proposition.
Okay. And another major driver you mentioned is just straightforward corrosion prevention.
Yes, this is, well, fundamental. By efficiently removing that bulk moisture from the air,
Right.
these dryers directly fight those corrosive effects, the ones that lead to degraded pipes, damaged equipment, all that expensive stuff.
Which is crucial for, well, all sorts of industries. Manufacturing floors, big gas utility pipelines.
Absolutely. It's a direct line, really, from removing the moisture to keeping the system performing well.
Yeah.
And crucially, minimizing those painful repair costs and that dreaded downtime.
Nobody wants downtime.
Nobody.
And then there's the economic angle. The report seems pretty clear on this. They're framed as an economical solution.
Yeah, compared to the more sophisticated options, like refrigerated dryers.
They cool the air down, right?
Cool it to condense the water.
Yeah.
Or the second dryers, which use sort of absorbent beads.
Like a sponge.
Kind of like a sponge, yeah. Compared to those, deliquescent dryers usually have a lower initial purchase price, much lower sometimes.
Yeah.
And their ongoing maintenance, it's just less technically complex, mostly just keeping an eye on the media and topping it up.
So if your application doesn't need like ultra bone dry air, or maybe you've got a smaller operation, or you only need compressed air now and then intermittently.
Exactly. For those situations, they become a highly cost-effective way to get the moisture control you need. But without the big capital expense or the ongoing technical overhead of those other systems, they really hit a kind of sweet spot for certain uses.
Okay. So passive nature, off-grid capability, basic corrosion protection, lower cost, makes them a compelling choice in specific scenarios.
There's always a but.
That very simplicity, it must introduce some significant limitations, right? What are the main challenges the report flags?
The most critical one probably is their limited ability to achieve a very low dew point.
Okay, explain dew point quickly. That's the temperature moisture starts condensing.
Exactly. So they can get the air dry, but maybe not ultra dry.
And some industries need ultra dry.
Oh, absolutely. Think about pharmaceuticals, electronics manufacturing, certain food processing applications. The required air purity and dryness levels there are incredibly stringent.
Right.
They need air where moisture just won't condense, even if it gets really cold. And deliquescent dryers, they simply can't consistently hit those ultra-low dew points needed for, quality control, regulatory compliance, all that critical stuff in high-spec environments.
Understood. So if you...
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
All that critical stuff in high-spec environments.
Understood. So if you need that, like, clean room level of dryness, this isn't your go-to solution on its own.
Correct. Another pretty significant challenge is managing the drying media itself.
Because it dissolves, you said, so you have to keep putting more in.
Yes, exactly. It gets consumed over time, so it needs regular replenishment. And crucially, that liquid stuff it turns into, the solution. It needs proper handling and disposal.
So that adds an ongoing operational cost, and I guess environmental considerations too, especially with waste disposal rules getting tighter.
Precisely.
It's not just install and forget.
Not at all. It's a continuous process requirement, something you wouldn't have in the same way with, say, electric or heat-reactivated dryer types.
Okay. And then, well, we live in the age of the smart factory, the connected factory. The report points to their lack of smart compatibility.
Yeah, this is a big one now. Their passive, kind of analog nature means they typically don't integrate easily with modern industrial automation systems.
So you can't just plug it into the plant's IoT network.
Nope. Can't monitor its performance remotely in real time. Can't integrate it into your centralized control systems like you might with other newer equipment.
It's a bit like trying to integrate a really solid old manual typewriter into a modern digital office workflow.
That's a good analogy, actually.
It works fine for its core job, but it just doesn't talk to anything else.
Right. And for factories that are really embracing data-driven operations, interconnected systems, well, this lack of intelligent features can be a significant drawback, a deterrent even.
Okay, so clear upsides for certain jobs, simplicity, cost, but also clear limits, especially for super dry air needs or highly automated smart environments. Given these hurdles, you might think this is a technology on its way out. But the market report suggests not quite. There's actually some interesting innovation happening. What trends are emerging?
Yeah, it's not fading away. One trend is finding new or maybe newly relevant applications where their specific strengths really shine. The report mentions increased use in areas like natural gas transmission. And also temporary field operations.
Okay, why those areas specifically? What makes them a good fit there now?
Well, it's their portability, their simple installation, and just their rugged design.
Built tough.
Yeah, they can take a bit of a beating. So for temporary setups or mobile sites, think emergency pipeline repairs, maybe exploration drilling sites, places where you need moisture control quickly, easily, maybe in a rough environment. A deliquescent dryer is just far easier to deploy than a big, fixed system.
Okay. Quick, simple, tough, mobile. That makes a lot of sense for those kinds of jobs.
And we're also seeing some significant progress in the drying media itself.
Tackling that chemical management challenge we talked about earlier.
Exactly. There's active development going on, creating more eco-friendly chemical compositions for one.
Kind of for the environment.
Right. And also media that's just more durable, lasts longer before it needs replacing.
So that directly hits both the operational cost replacing it less often and the environmental concerns around disposal. Sounds like a potential win-win.
It absolutely aims to mitigate that downside, improve sustainability, and the economic calculation over the dryer's whole life cycle.
Okay, now here's where it gets, for me anyway, really interesting. Maybe even a bit counterintuitive for such a, well, simple technology. The source highlights a trend towards hybrid systems.
This is perhaps the most fascinating innovation, I agree. It involves integrating deliquescent dryers as like a component within a larger system that might also use other technologies, maybe membrane or desiccant dryers.
Wait, so you use the deliquescent dryer first, like a pre-filter stage, and maybe another type afterwards to get the air even drier?
Precisely that. You leverage the affordability and the simplicity of the deliquescent stage for the initial heavy-lifting moisture removal.
Get rid of the bulk water cheaply.
Exactly. Get rid of the bulk water cost-effectively. Then a second stage, using a different technology, can polish the air, basically. Achieve that ultra-low dew point that you might need for the really critical applications.
Wow, okay, that's clever. So it's not about replacing them entirely, it's about using their specific strength bulk moisture removal at low cost as a first step. In a more complex system that ultimately meets a higher performance bar, that directly addresses that limited low dew point challenge we discussed earlier.
It really does. It allows users to kind of combine the economic benefits of the deliquescent stage with the performance capabilities of other technologies. It offers way more flexibility.
Yeah.
And potentially, it's a more cost-effective path to getting that really high dryness level compared to relying solely on the more expensive technologies from start to finish.
So if we connect all these pieces then, it sounds like the story of the deliquescent dryer market isn't just about a simple technology holding its own ground. It's more about it finding its specific and evolving role within the bigger industrial landscape.
Yeah, what's really fascinating here, I think, is how this, legacy functionality passive chemical-based drying is adapting. It definitely thrives in specific niches. It faces clear limitations. We've covered those. But it's also being pushed forward by innovation in its core media, and surprisingly, by being integrated into these more advanced hybrid systems.
It's a great example, actually, of how technology evolves not just through replacement, but sometimes through strategic adaptation and combination.
Yeah.
And that pretty much wraps up our deep dive into the world of deliquescent dryers. We've unpacked the key drivers behind their use, from that energy efficiency in remote spots and essential corrosion prevention, right through to their clear economic appeal for certain applications.
And we've also looked squarely at the challenges they face, particularly that limitation on getting to ultra-low dew points, the ongoing need for chemical media management, and their current lack of easy smart compatibility.
But we also explored the emerging trends that are pushing the market forward, finding those new applications where their rugged simplicity is actually perfect, improving the media itself, making it greener and longer lasting, and maybe most interestingly, seeing them integrated into hybrid systems to overcome some of those performance limits.
And just to remind you, this entire analysis was based on detailed market data and insights provided by Cognitive Market Research, giving us this snapshot of a market that's, well, definitely more dynamic than you might first think.
It really makes you pause, doesn't it? And think about how even seemingly simple, or maybe legacy, technologies aren't static. They're constantly adapting, finding new relevance to meet modern industrial demands.
Which brings up an important question maybe for you, the listener, to think about. As industries keep navigating this tricky balance between upfront cost, long-term operational efficiency, and increasingly environmental responsibility, which of those factors do you think will be the biggest driving force? The biggest driver behind how technologies like these evolve going forward?
Cost, efficiency, or environment. Something to consider as you look at the equipment that's powering the world all around you.
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai